Around 60% of Malaysians remain uninsured or underinsured.
Knowing that healthcare is going to become more expensive, how do I take charge of my own health today?
Hi everyone and welcome to Insured Truths. This is a series where we bring together experts across the healthcare and insurance industry to have real conversations about one thing that is truly close to our well-being, health insurance. I'm Shankari, co-founder of Insured Speaks and your host today. Just a quick intro. Insured Speaks is a review and rating platform where people can share their insurance claim experiences and rate their health insurance providers. We started Insured Speaks as an initiative to increase transparency around health insurance claims. We wanted to hear other people's story and create an informed community on claim experiences. But as we started talking to more and more people, we realized that health insurance is still a very confusing topic to many. It is often an isolated experience for many families. This lack of understanding and misinformation is what's creating the fear, and which is pushing people away from an institution that is meant to protect them during vulnerable times. So with our series, we wanted to slow things down, to talk openly, to ask better questions, and to help people feel a bit more control of their health insurance decisions. In today's episode, the next chapter for Malaysia's health insurance, we are honoured to be joined by Ms. Rhenu Bhuller. Ms. Rhenu is a senior healthcare and business strategist with over 25 years' experience across Asia-Pacific, Australia and Europe, helping governments, global organizations and healthcare leaders rethink how healthcare is delivered, financed and made more accessible. She spent nearly 2 decades with Frost & Sullivan, where she advised on healthcare transformation, digital innovation and sustainable growth strategies. Ms. Rhenu, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
Very good. My pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Okay. You have been working closely with policymakers, investors, and innovators on healthcare systems. In your own context, could you please tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. I guess my foray into healthcare started at a very early stage. I started in the pharmaceutical industry first. So at that time, I worked in the drug development and understanding that whole process of how drugs get to the consumer. And as part of that, you also understand what consumers or patients generally need. So from there, I joined Frost & Sullivan after about 10 years in the pharmaceutical industry. And that was where I think I started getting exposed to different aspects of healthcare in terms of both, personalization of healthcare, but more importantly, how the cost of healthcare was starting to change with the changing demographics. Mm-hmm. Because when you look at our population today, and I'm talking about first 20 years ago, we were aware that we were seeing these shifts, the aging population. With aging population, you do get rising healthcare costs. On the good side, you also had new technologies coming in, new products, new surgical interventions, new forms of diagnostics. But innovation also requires cost. So as these new innovations come in, the cost of treating also started to grow. So looking at all of this at that point, I was really fortunate to be able to work with different countries, the governments of different countries and the healthcare departments that were looking to understand how were they going to manage these populations of the future. Because depending on just government on taxes, which was the main source of income for governments at that time, that's one of the sources other than commodities and so on. But just looking at that, the cost of healthcare and providing healthcare obviously was going to outpace whatever they could keep up with in terms of income. You add to that your aging population, so your tax-paying population goes down, but these populations then need a lot more in terms of healthcare. So I think, I started really looking at how different countries were approaching the problems that they were facing. Now, when you have smaller contained countries where populations are smaller, when you look at countries like, let's say, Switzerland or Singapore, you're looking at populations of, let's say, 4, 5, 6 million people. Then you get larger countries. You're looking at, Indonesia, you're looking at the US, you're looking, even in Malaysia, and you start looking at hundreds of millions of people. So the scale is very, very different. So I think and that really got me exposed to thinking, how do we do that? And one of the aspects, you have technology, you do have different mechanisms of payment. public versus private funded mechanism. But also more importantly, the rise of what I call the rise of the consumer. Because end of the day, it is our health. So we need to be informed of what are the different steps we are taking to manage it.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more. Okay, right now that you have gone through all these countries and have observed how their healthcare system is and their insurance system, is Malaysia on par with them?
I think Malaysia has a very solid foundation. We have a very strong public system which provides access. People can go in and essentially get care. Yes, you have to wait long, but that's with almost every public healthcare system in the world. Then on the other hand, you also have very high quality private health where you pay higher costs, but you don't wait as long. So I think we have a strong dual system foundation, which if you ask me is a good basis and a good starting point of where we really need to go.
Okay. So as we said, we are actually moving towards a more digital and connected health system. What do you think are the biggest challenges we need to overcome to ensure that our Malaysians are better protected?
Yeah. Now, when you talk about digital health systems, it's not just us. I think that governments around the world are grappling with this. Some are a little bit further ahead, and I think we can learn from those. But I wouldn't say there is a perfect system where everyone has now implemented digital health fully. I think the first is the fragmented data systems. Because when you look at digital health and you look at the technology, they've come in at different phases.
Yes.
And depending on whether sometimes it's a state-based system, then you have a federal-based system, then you have the private hospital system. So all of these essentially may be using different data platforms. So data is really fragmented. The interoperability of that data is not there. And I know that we're going towards one health record, and I think that's really important. Australia has also been trying to implement that, and hopefully it's getting there. But with that one health record, one of the things we will hopefully be able to do is take away wastage from the system. And when I talk about that, what I mean is if you've taken certain tests now in a certain hospital or a certain clinic, those tests should not be repeated unless warranted for.
Exactly.
And because we don't have it all in one place, it's really difficult to track. So if I take Korea, for example, Korea has mandatory health checkups every year or every 2 years. You have to go for mandatory health checkups. And then that data is there in your health record. And when you do your subsequent checkup, it's also there. So you can actually track progress, whether it's progressing or regressing, and take interventions accordingly. So I think that the technology, if you ask me, is there. I think the challenges are really in the fragmentation of the data, the interoperability, the ability for the systems to actually speak with one another. And then you've got consumer trust, because it's like, no, I don't want my healthcare to go, my data to go out there, because if my data goes out there, my insurance premiums are going to go up. So they automatically connect all that. Oh, I won't get insured. So I think there's a lot of concern as well from the consumers around that piece.
Because people don't want to show their record that it's like they have pre-existing condition. Correct. That will lead to exclusions in the policy and everything also.
But you see, that's the other problem, right? When you're not transparent with this, and somehow or other, if that pre-existing condition is discovered, obviously your claim is going to get denied.
Exactly.
Because the purpose of taking insurance is to protect yourself.
Yes, true.
And it works best when there is transparency to start with.
Will the private hospitals, they need to cooperate with this initiative as well, the One Citizen, One Record?
Yes.
This one. So the data is actually a very powerful asset actually. So they have to cooperate as well and all. Do you think that will be feasible, the execution point?
Well, I think that's where you need, I guess, government intervention.
Yes.
That this needs to happen. These are the different, steps for it to happen. It will take time. And I think with all of this, with every digital implementation system, it'll be a phased rollout. The best way is you start with a pilot. Let's say we've decided, okay, I don't know, since Bangsa is our pilot, so the private hospital in Bangsa and public, and you start with that population pilot, and then you learn and you slowly roll it out. And I think these are things that have been planned. If I'm pretty sure that these are things that our government and our Ministry of Health is looking at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, let's steer this conversation slightly in a different direction. Now, despite all this growing number of insurers and the government initiatives, still around 60% of Malaysians remain uninsured or underinsured. Why do you think this protection gaps still exist or continue to persist?
Yeah, so it's hard to say what's the ideal percentage of private health insurance, right? Because when we say we are at 40% private health insurance, you'd be really surprised to know that in some developed countries, it's even less. It was quite surprising to me when I moved to Australia many years ago. I'm back now, but when I moved there to find out that at that time it was only 20%.
Oh, okay.
Because the view of the population was, I am paying high taxes. That's different. I'm paying high taxes. And because I'm paying high taxes, I'm paying high taxes so that I get free healthcare. So why should I pay high taxes and then at the same time have to pay for private health insurance? So what the government then introduced is a incentive system to incentivize those who are high income earners to take private health. Because essentially then the public health system could be kept for those who really needed it and couldn't afford it. So then a system came into place where if you earned above a certain amount, and if you did not take private insurance, you'd pay an extra 2% on tax or something like that, right? An extra percentage. So it then automatically made sense. Since I'm going to pay that in tax anyway, I might as well use that to pay for private health insurance.
Yes.
And that helped to increase the private insurance uptake. So I think for us here in Malaysia, it all comes down to people understanding their personal circumstances. Why are they taking insurance? Why do they need it? What can they afford? What do they need? So what I think really needs to happen is a really good diagnostic system for people individually, for them and their families, their dependents and so on, to understand their circumstances today, to understand what is important to them, to understand their ability to afford if something actually happens, and looking at their, history and so on, what they may need. Once you get that understanding, then you make a decision. What level of healthcare do I need? Because sometimes people I have to take the best healthcare possible with all these 50 diseases because I want to be protected against everything. But is that really what's necessary? So I think that we need a few things to happen. We need first clarity and education on what medical health insurance is, different from income protection or from life. So really, what are you protecting when it comes to medical and health? What is important to you? And then different levels of, I guess, even policies. I think we have something like that today, but really understanding, do you need a, bronze, gold, silver, platinum, and why do you need it?
Yes.
Understanding that. And this can change through life. So you may start to say, today I need the basic because I'm, let's say, in my 20s. So today I need this basic insurance, and I'll put it there because it's insurance. In case something happens to me and I cannot afford to pay, I'd rather pay this, right? And then as you progress through life, you decide, okay, now my needs have changed and I may need something else. So I think people need to understand that first. I think secondly, our products need to be simpler. It's very complex, and I'm someone I've studied this, so I understand it. But when I'm looking at this, I'm like, how does someone who has not studied it understand it? Are we intentionally making it complex?
When you go through different websites, different insurance providers' websites, the terms they use are also different.
Yeah.
The way they display the products of the same thing, say investment-linked products between these two companies, are starkly different. And it makes, what's the difference between, it really confuses layman consumers. When I start talking to other people, this is like, they say, I don't understand anything. I just believe what my insurance agent said.
Yeah.
This is what has been sold. He said this is covered, and that's it. That's pretty much they want to know. That's it.
Exactly. And that's not necessarily the right way to buy. So there are, and here too possibly, you've seen that there are now these comparison sites that come up, right?
Yes.
So you put in all your data, your age, whether you want single, you want family, you want, coverage with children, you put in all of that. And then what's important to you, then it'll give you these are your 3 possible options. And then it compares, that's the price. This is what's covered. This is not. And it's really simple, like tick, tick, tick. Then you decide. Now, then you need someone to talk. You need to talk to someone first, because we are at the stage where potentially you should be asking the right questions. And I think that's the other piece of education we need to do. What are the 5 questions you must ask whoever you're buying from before you actually sign up?
That's actually a very good thing. Asking the correct questions. Most of them will stick to their budget. I have this budget and I want to be covered with everything. So I think the need-based analysis is very important, as you said. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. As you said earlier, healthcare costs is rising, and because of that, insurance premiums are also rising. But the wages are not rising at the same rate. So even it's making difficult for people who want to afford health insurance and sustain it. That's another question.
Correct.
And also there's another aspect that people are not seeing insurance as a necessity, but it's more like something nice to have, this perspective. Yeah. So how can we make the healthcare and the insurance system more sustainable in the long run?
So I think it depends again on the individual's current financial situation. Because if I'm at minimum wage, insurance is a nice to have, because if I'm at minimum wage, that's what our public healthcare system is for. It is to support people who are unable to afford even the basic, right?
Yes.
Now, let's say as I move up, then I start looking at what I could what are some of the different things I want to spend on. And you're absolutely right that premiums are rising above wages. And that's where having products that could suit the needs, it's needs-based. And understanding at each stage of your life, what is your biggest need right now? So if I am, let's say, the sole income earner, or if someone is the sole income earner in their family and they've got 2 children, let's assume something happens, and they are unable to work for 6 months to a year. What do they need? They need to ensure their medical costs are covered, and they need to ensure that there will be enough income coming in to support for that period of time. So then they need to look at a product that meets that.
Yes.
Right? Now, finding the budget for that product, that's where budgeting comes in, because it's priorities. Do I get my Zeus coffee, or do I pay 5 ringgit a day for insurance? And the person could also make a choice that I don't want to pay these high premiums, but I am going to put aside, instead of paying 100 ringgit a month for premiums, I'm going to put aside 100 ringgit a month in an investment fund where I will have enough to hopefully pay for certain surgeries. But again, that's a decision you have to make individually. Are premiums going to go down? No. Premiums are not, healthcare costs just are not going to go down.
Okay.
I think that's something we have to accept.
Okay.
So if you think that it's going to get cheaper at some point, no. So what is so important is knowing that healthcare is going to become more expensive. How do I take charge of my own health today so that I may not need to do all these things? And that's where the whole preventive health, holistic health, staying healthy, that's the cheapest way actually.
Yes, actually.
That's the cheapest way to potentially manage healthcare costs.
Yes. I actually seen in some of the financial, like the investment league, they'll have this bronze, the levels for well-being. If you're healthy and didn't claim, or this one, there's actually some incentives. They are rewarding people to be healthy. So I think it is aligned. Being healthy in the end is the best way forward. So when talking about digitalization, we of course can't avoid talking about AI. AI, telehealth, and predictive analytics are transforming our healthcare. How do you see these technologies reshaping health insurance in the next 5 to 10 years?
So when we look at how AI is being used, it's being used to get really large data sets. So you get data sets from huge populations. You look at the previous years, what's been spent, how it's spent. So these data sets are now being used to calculate potentially the way programs or costs or policies are being structured. So that's, I think, the first one, really looking at long-term data sets. What, by population, by history, by health history, by age, and so on. So I think what this will do is this will give a better indication of what potentially could be the costs, and it could shape the future of different policies to come. I think the other way that could also be used is, as I said, when you're doing an analysis, when you put in, your needs, your current situations, that analysis, it can also be used to recommend and propose what could be potentially right structures. It's being used for comparisons as well. Yes. So I think from the insurer side, it's being used to help them basically run their business. But from the consumer side, it can also help us to make better decisions with the right information.
Yes, absolutely right. Also, another aspect is the digital adoption rate. So Malaysians in general are tech savvy. Most of them use mobile phones, apps and everything. And half of the population are financially literate. We can say that. However, we are digital first insurers, insurtech platforms like Ouch, Kautim, it's rising. But the adoption rate is still low.
Yeah. And I think that's where, again, education, trust. Trust is really important, and understanding. Because when you look at, and it depends who's buying insurance as well. If someone is in their 20s and, they've grown up in the digital age, they would feel a lot more comfortable with looking at these and making comparisons as compared to, let's say, someone who's much, who hasn't been so familiar with it. And that's where I think those that in that age can help their older generations, yes, I guess, to do that. But I think very importantly, when you look at the platforms, the trust of the consumer is really important, which is why today, in today's age, I think 100% digital, we're not ready for that. Because for so long, we've been so used to talking to someone, yes, and trusting, I would say, that person for what we buy. Oh yeah, they said this is it, just buy it, and I'm just going to buy it and forget about it. Whereas that's always not the most transparent way.
Now we are
today with this, you have the ability to now compare. Let's say these are 4 different policies from 4 different companies, and then from there you may decide as a person to shortlist one of the 2. Then the next step could be potentially to talk to someone. So you still need, I think, a hybrid tech and human touch, at least for this transitionary period, I would say, of the next, the short to midterm. Once you have that and you build that trust, and people will learn, okay, it's been going. Then when they do their subsequent renewals or their subsequent comparisons, they already have that confidence to do it. So that's why I think this transitionary period, a hybrid approach of human tech, is potentially the way to go.
So insurance agents still need to play a role.
I don't know whether I would use the term insurance agents. I think for all these platforms that are providing this, I would even use the term educators.
Educators, okay.
I think yes. I would say insurance educators, to actually be able to talk through a person to say, these are your 2, and we think this is the best option. And the educator needs to be neutral. The educator should not be from
any particular insurance company. They have to be biased.
They have to be the person, they have to be the one who's providing the best 1 or 2 options. And then, yes, I as the consumer can make my decision.
Yes, so the unbiasedness need to exist. That's only when the trust comes in, actually. Okay.
Maybe why don't you talk a little bit more about what you're trying to do?
Okay.
So because then we build that in. So I think it'll be really nice to talk about what you've been trying to do and your experience.
Okay, so when we started, actually we are a review and rating platform. We want to hear so all these consumers, the policyholders, they already have this insurance and they are having experience on the claim and everything. So we wanted to create a place where people can share their experiences. Oh, I went to this hospital and the GL took this long to issue and everything. So we want to hear these stories. What's actually happening? You already have the product. Are you actually receiving the actual benefits that you were promised years ago?
Right.
So that's how we started off. And then people started rating the insurance provider. Oh, this one is good. And that's how we want to create awareness. So, but when we started talking more, and then we realized that people don't like the agents because there'll be, once they go to the hospital, there's a different story. Oh, you have this, and then they're like, no, my agent say that I can claim. So this kind of stories exist. So there is actually a misinformation and misunderstanding of what was sold in the beginning and what is they're actually entitled to. So that's when we realize knowledge is important.
Yeah.
The education part. People need to know all this. What is riders? What is the premium waivers? I'm not sure whether people are aware of all these terms.
Absolutely. And how are you helping people understand what they're buying?
At the moment, in the end, it's going to be, we'll have all these resources. Our podcast is one of the way is to educate people as well, to know about what's going on in the current health insurance, the reviews and rating systems. We also plan to have quiz where people can test how well they know about their health insurance. So these are all the things that we are is appearing in the app soon.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think one important aspect again is, I guess, that whole demographic, that assessment of yourself, your health needs, your health insurance needs at this point. I mean, one thing people don't also understand is when they take insurance, if they take a certain, like when you buy car insurance, if you take a deductible to say, okay, I will pay the first 1,000 ringgit if something happens, and then after that it's covered, the premiums go down significantly. And I think that is something that also people need to understand when they want to buy the insurance online. If they say, okay, I will pay the first 1,000 and then the rest insurance will cover, that's actually a really good way when you talk about how to manage, budgets and costs. I think that's a really good way. You decide how much I can put aside rather than, no, I want to be 100% covered for even the first ringgit. Now for that, you are going to pay a, significantly higher premium. And I think the other way also is having those, what are your must know questions before you buy. You know before you buy.
Yes.
I think those are something that potentially would be really good to work on.
Yes. Another aspect we are looking at was the policy reviewer platform. So this is where, so if you look at your policy statement, it is at least more than 60 pages with all the clauses and everything. How have you read through the whole pages?
No one can.
Yeah, no one can.
Yeah.
So the idea is when they upload this document, so they can actually communicate with the bot and ask, okay, I have this diagnosis and I'm going to this hospital. Is my policy covered?
Yeah.
Is this a panel hospital? So they will be well informed even before heading to the hospital, how much deductibles they have to pay, whether they have to pay deposit for the rooms, everything they'll be already well informed. So that's the ultimate goal actually.
And I think that's where, as you mentioned, we asked about how we use AI. I think that's how AI can be used. But what I would like to see is people doing this before they buy. Because then because once you've already bought, there's nothing much you can do because your bot will come back and tell you that, oh yeah, sorry, but you're not covered. What are you going to do? So where people should be putting this in is ask the question before you buy. So if I'm going to this kind of scenarios, put a draft policy in, and if it tells you, well, yes, you're covered, great, this is what I need. Or no, if you want this is how it should change. So I think all these needs to happen before people buy.
Yes, but the underwriting is another issue as well because everyone has different needs. So
that's the needs-based analysis.
Yes,
so that's why it's individual. But this is where, again, with AI is tailored.
Tailor it to personalize it. Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's where AI can reach these needs actually. Because I also see that at one point, although people's needs are different, fundamentally it's still the same. You want to protect your family. You want to have an adequate protection in terms of medical health. Maybe life insurance, you want a certain amount. Everyone wants the same thing. Maybe the amounts are different.
But I also think, though, you want the same. I don't think you want the same thing throughout your life.
A life cycle.
So I think life's reviewing what you want in me. As I mentioned, when you have dependent children, your needs are very different from what they are from when you are in your 60s and you have no dependent children. So I think, you look at your life in buckets, your first 20 years, then 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 80. And what you need at each stage
It's totally
actually
different. Yes. Okay. So you're right on that. To close off, what is your message to our viewers here today?
I think first, take ownership. We all are responsible for our own health. Understand what we need. Really do an in-depth analysis of what's important to you. What do you need at different stages of life? And I think from there, once you have that, study what is out there. Spend a little bit of time, because when we are going to buy a car, I'll tell you this, you will go and check the different models, right? You might even do a test drive. Put, I would say, maybe as much effort into the health insurance you're going to buy that you would put when you're buying a house or a car. Learn, educate, understand, and then buy.
Okay. Thank you so much for the insight today.
You're welcome. Pleasure to be here.
So, thank you so much, Ms. Rhenu, for your insights today. It's very inspiring to have you with us, and we hope our viewers learned something about health insurance today. So, we hope everyone can take ownership of your health insurance decisions, and with that, you can take more confident with what you actually have, whether you're protected or not. So, stay tuned for more upcoming episodes in our series, Insured Truths. Thank you very much.